Okay, I'm ready to do the announcements. Afterwards, y'all don't mind. I just gotta run to the restroom really quick and then I'll come back. I didn't get a chance to go while running up here, but I want to get things started just so we can get things started. But it's good to see everybody here. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful weekend. I had a pretty good weekend. Oh, actually, you know what? My weekend was good, but I was pretty upset. Long story short. The same bird who got injured itself again, and I had to go get it checked up. We didn't go to the emergency room this time. My girlfriend was like, "Don't worry, it's only $60 for a checkup," and it ended up being like $250. It was like the same price as the emergency room, and like I was just so upset. I'm like, I spent $500 on, I love my bird still. Okay, like he's my baby, but but. But I was like so mad at him. I was like picking him up. I'm like, dude, stop hurting yourself, or like I'm gonna put you in like a really small cage, you know? But I think like he can't fly very well, so he falls a lot in the cage. So I think he hit like a corner or something. The good news is that he's actually starting to learn how to fly. So hopefully like everything's good to go. But really quickly, y'all, just kind of go over some of the announcements. Project 3 thumbnail voting is going to be this Wednesday. If you would like to participate in the thumbnail, well, I guess it's mandatory from what I remember. It might be homework. Yes.
Excuse me.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh.
You just yes, perfect. It's for the pen.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Frank.
You got the pens?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Good to see you. So Project 3 voting is this Wednesday. So what is it? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, if you so make sure to post them up by this Wednesday. Make sure to number them so that way we can what is it? So we can pick on the ones that we like the most. Okay. And then other than that though, they will be for points for what I remember. So there should be, yes. So they are going to be mandatory, so just make sure to like post them up. Other than that, though, again, I do have to leave just a little bit early today. There's a Cal State Fullerton thing like I have to go do. So we'll probably end the class around like 8:50-ish, 8:45 to 50-ish, and then like that's basically it. Otherwise, next week, y'all. So next week is a little bit like funky, so I kind of want to talk about that. So okay, really quickly, this might sound like a really dumb question, but I just want to confirm with everybody here. Do y'all know how many weeks this semester there are? 60. Okay, good. Okay, so we're all on the same page. Okay. All right. So the 16 weeks. Okay. I don't know if y'all know this, but for anybody if this is your first or second semester, sometimes there's 16 weeks, sometimes there's 17 weeks. So it switches back and forth. And it's not like winter is always 16 and spring is always like 17. It's not like that. It's like random. So like you really gotta check. And like they're not very clear about that on the calendar. Like the calendar we get from the department's not very clear on that sometimes. So like I have to like basically figure out like from other people usually to like confirm, you know. But I got that it was 16 too. So our basically long story short, like our semester ends on week 16. Okay. Project 3 is going to be doing week 16 Saturday. So like we're going to have to so I want y'all to put all your stuff in the folder by week 16 Saturday. You will have up until Monday to submit your stuff late. All right. So or Tuesday 9 a.m. of week 17, quote unquote 17. It doesn't exist, but if we had to go over past week 16, you can submit it on Tuesday 9 a.m. the latest. Okay. So I have to get grades in pretty fast because like Fulton Community College only gives me one week to like submit grades. But long story short, like the end of the semester is coming up soon. I also know next week is going to be fall recess, like towards the end of the week. All right. So for fall recess, okay. So we technically still have class Monday and Wednesday, from what I know. Anybody here like heard different? Okay, so I know we still have class Monday and Wednesday. So here's what I'm going to do. Next week, I have to still continue to do the lesson. Okay, but you have a couple options. All right. Option one, you can come to class. It's like a very simple option. Option two, you can show up online. I will allow you to show up online, especially for those of y'all who are going to be traveling out of town or out of the state, and maybe even possibly out of the country. Like, well, I guess like it depends. I guess if you're going together as a family, because I don't know what other countries celebrate Thanksgiving. But if you're taking advantage of vacation day, okay, and you're going out of the country with family, something like that, right? I will allow you to be online. Your last option is you don't have to show up at all. I will excuse your absence, but you are responsible for watching the videos that I post online. Okay, you have to watch them. Okay. If you don't watch them, like basically by not showing up to class, you basically sign a unspoken contract that you have agreed to like catch up on your own. Okay, so if you don't do that, that's on you, and that's just your responsibility. But next week, I'm gonna make it an optional class, and then I'm gonna make it what is it? Yeah, I'll make it optionally online too. But for those of y'all who want to show up in person, I will still come here in person. Okay. Other than that, though, that's pretty much it for that part. And then I'll go over some other little things later. But anybody have any questions? Awesome. Okay. And then I have gotten like all of the projects graded. I haven't gotten the exercises graded yet, but I should have them graded by what is it? By next week or this sometime this week. Like they should be graded. So I'll just be on the lookout for those over there. But for your project grades, like if you do have any questions about them, if you'd like me to take a look at them, if you'd like to like set up an appointment so that we can like go over them, like feel free to let me know. I have some people in other classes who want to do it during like break time. During break time, I don't mind taking a quick look, but if you need any like actual paint overs and things like that, please set an appointment with me. Okay. Like it's a lot. It's hard to do anything in like 10 to 15 minutes, but like if you give me like an hour to paint over your stuff, I guarantee I can show you all the little things I want to like fix with it. Otherwise that's pretty much it. So anybody have any questions about today before what is it? Before I let you all before we get started with today's like stuff. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm going to continue off of the thumbnail sheet. I did a couple thumbnails at home too. There's one that I really like, so I might actually grab from that thumbnail and try to combine it with some of the stuff that we did last week. But generally, like what we want to do is like we want to do a lot of our brainstorming right now. And I'm just going to set this up and I'm just going to run to the restroom. Let's see, let's do this. Yeah, this one I really like for DART107. By the way, if y'all ever like teach or anything, like you still got to do thumbnails. Like I try to like as a teacher, I try to like think of all the thumbnails like I want to do at home. So that way, like when I jump into the class, like I actually have something good I can show people. Because even if I do thumbnails in class, sometimes like none of them come out good, or maybe some of them do. So if when as like a teacher, like I go home and I like do extra ones, so that way like I already showed everyone the process, but like now I have one that I really like that I can actually like, move forward with the class, but just good teaching tricks. Let's see. Yeah, I like this one. So let's grab this and then let's go open. There are the ones from last week. Open up a couple of them just to where are the thumbnails I did last week? Did I not save them? Right. If they're not in there, then I guess they're just not in there. I'll just redo it. Okay, it's okay. Just start new. I want to design more of the house because I like this house, but it's also kind of boring. So look for some references. And something I would kind of recommend you all to do is when you're looking for house references, so something I've kind of noticed about what is it? About like this assignment is that like a lot of people feel like they're obligated to do like everything without reference. And like I highly recommend like if you have trouble designing things, like use reference. Okay. And the way that I would kind of use reference for this class is so like sometimes you could get like very creative things, right? Like if I just go to like let's look at like since I'm gonna do something like an Asian architecture thing, let's do like Asian fantasy, like something like this, right? You could be very, very, very creative about like your architecture, and you can make some really, really, really cool things too. Okay. And you can go really nuts, y'all. Like for example, let's look at okay, there we go. Okay. So this is Marie. She is an amazing artist, and I was lucky enough to be in a class with her one time. And this is the stuff that she showed for the class. Okay, so this is what she did. So for this class, she created this environment, and it's like inspired by like Middle Eastern culture and cats. Those are the two things. Okay. And when you look at these over here, and this is the line work piece, which is like something that I want, like for the class, it would be like this would be like if you mastered line work, and for this like project, if you could like do line work this well and like do your values really well, then that's the project, right? But Marie, like you can see all these thumbnails for compositions, all the buildings, and it's not just the compositions and the lighting, right? It's not just those things, right? There's also color, right? There's also texture, right? But one thing that I want y'all to do is design your props very well. And that's why I had y'all like do so many flats, or why I want y'all to do so many flats in the beginning, is I want y'all to really, really design your props. Like if you look at these are all like, what is it, like posts, and there are in the shape of like, in shape and form of like Middle Eastern furniture, right? Or architecture and things like that. But it also has elements in there that were engineered for cats, and you can see with the references over here, along with like the structures that are kind of like being in the furniture that's kind of like being used, how like Marie combines those two things together to create something that looks like it would be believable in this world, right? So you can see like different doors over here. And if you look at the doors, like they look like Middle Eastern like designs from far away. But from up close, they have like subliminal cat-like like cat-like symbolism. The paws, the fish bones, right? The cat ears on the doors. You all see that, right? The overall door itself is also a cat ear. You all see that, right? There's a lot of thought that went into this design. You know, like Marie, when Marie was like working on this, like she was like, you get okay, so when you work on these sort of things, you have to think about what you want it to look like first, and then how you want people to read it second. So for example, do you think it's more important for them to read this as a cat, like something cats would use first, like maybe like furniture and things like that? you know, like scratching posts or like litter boxes or whatever? Or do you think it's important for it to look like actual architecture first, like archways, doors, and things like that, right? You have to think about generally what is the function of this first. Is it a door? Is it a scratching post, right? Or maybe it's both. But if it's both, you can't have it be half and half. It has to function more like one thing than the other, you know? Otherwise, like it becomes very confusing what it is. Like, have y'all ever, for example, let's see, One Piece, Four Kids. Anybody saw the Four Kids version of One Piece before? No. Yeah, I watched it a while. Okay. So this is a censorship that they did for Four Kids. Four Kids, they did like the Yu-Gi-Oh, like Pokemon, like dubs, things like that. Okay. You can see in the original version, and I apologize, this is a bit graphic. Okay. It's, you know, guns are against the head or it can be incredibly grim, but it's very clear what's there. It's very clear that the pink-haired kid is in trouble, right? On the left is the censorship version. Can anybody tell me how do you use that? I don't know how to use that. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it even is or what it's even inspired by. I feel like it's really hard to use. Okay. Like okay, if that metal part on the top is like actually made of metal, do you think it can actually support springs if you're like sticking it out like that? And if the spring is not elastic, then what's the point of having the spring? Maybe it's like a really hard coil. What is the point of having that there then? Shouldn't it just be like a hammer? That would have just been better, right? Like you need to make sure that it looks like something first, okay? So I want to show you more of Marie's designs here because like I think like she does a really good job like implementing like cat like furniture along with like Middle Eastern architecture or just architecture in general, right? Like look at all these scratching posts. In this situation, like for cats, the scratching post is actually kind of a main furniture. So instead of choosing something that humans would use and then making it like fit for cats, Marie chose something that cats usually use first and then made it fit a little bit into like the culture and theme, right? Like, so you can see over here how scratching posts are implemented as furniture in this scene, right? And there's just so much little things that Marie does too, even with the architecture. Look at the way that you climb up. It's with like rope and like it's exactly how like scratching posts and things like that work too, right? Look at the building, look at like the architecture, the shapes, all that kind of stuff. And all together, it still looks like a building that you would, you know, inspired by that culture or region, right? You see that, right? There's more over here, even with like the interior. Look at the cat ears and the architecture, all that stuff. But from far away, you wouldn't even be able to tell that that's for cats first. You would think that this is like a room based in like a Middle Eastern story, right? And then when you look up closer, yeah, oh my gosh, there's like a mouse over here. There's like a giant ball of yarn, right? There's like all these little things over here. So it's really, 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 it takes a lot of like skill and a lot of knowledge and a lot of time to learn how to be this good at combining your design. But like this is kind of the end goal that I want y'all to like think about. And Marie, like you know, when you're working this back, by the way, she did like this whole page in like a week. I know it's like insane. But for Marie, okay, like this, I think this is a good goal to set for yourself. If like you want to be like this good at design, okay, look at the mountains, right? Like this place was not just like inspired by something that we have in our world, but it's a world that's created also for cats. And she really, really thought about that, you know, like, and again, it takes a lot of time to get this good. So something that I would recommend to do for this project is this is going to be some people's first time designing out architecture for like a scene, right? Designing out an imaginary scene, things like that, right? So what I would recommend to do is instead of so I will say it's okay to find other people's like references over here. So like if I want like to look up like tea house like concept art, okay, tea house concept art, right? Like I can look up like different tea houses, Japanese. I can find like different like concept art like that can like help me design, but like I don't recommend to like base your idea off of someone else's art too much because that can lead to like plagiarism and other like legal issues, right? So here's what I recommend to do. Okay. This one's really nice too. So when y'all are working on your prop, because I think like the two things that are going to make your project three very successful is A, having a good composition. This is just for the drawing part, not for the shading part. Okay. Having a really good composition, your composition should have a focal point. It should have structure and movement. So it should like all of your elements should be placed in areas to lead your eye to the focal point, right? And you should have objects framing your focal point too, right? They should all lead your eyes to that focal area. And you should also have balance, right? That's what your composition needs. Balance is like there's not too much things to the right, not too much things to the left. It doesn't feel empty. It doesn't feel static anywhere. That's important too, right? Like you want to make sure everything's leading your eye to the focal point, but you still have areas that lead you out. Okay. Now, the second thing is going to be your prop designs. Okay, your prop design. How cool your building's going to look. Not just your building, but the way you like design your trees, your sidewalk, the engravings on the wall or the tiles on the floor, the way you design your cats, your characters, your the grandma sitting like on the bed, you know, the couch if you're doing like an interior shot, right? The way those are designed, those have to look cool. Those have to look fun. They have to look interesting. Okay, because if you have a really good composition, that's like really like the minimum that you need to tell a good story is good composition. You know, like I've seen a lot of like really fun stories that have really bad art. You know, I'm not saying like the bad art that's so bad it's good. I'm saying like the art that's not that interesting, but the storytelling is interesting, so it makes me want to continue, right? But having what is it? Having like a very good prop, very fun focal point to look at that really like that doesn't just look good, but it has sauce to it, you know, right? Like the moment y'all seen a lot of really good pieces before, but like you know how like when you look at some pieces, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. Like you can tell the technique's good. But some pieces you're like, damn, something about it. I can't tell what it is, but it's just so striking, right? Like you need to have that. And that has to come with your your design, your drawings, your lighting, your if you're doing colors, your colors, right? So those all need to be like what is it? Those all need to be really, really nice when you're thinking of design. Let's see, is anything due today? I don't think anything is due today. Again, y'all, you can find all the deadlines and all the instructions for like your projects and things like that under like the deadline and homework submissions. So like in terms of like thumbnails to do, I would just check like the like thumbnail submissions over here to like just you know like in the future. It's like it's all gonna be here. Yeah, sketch work. So see, it's all right here. So just make sure to check like what is it? Make sure to check like the deadlines and just make sure to check like you know that area for anything like that's due. But yeah, I don't think anything's due because we only got the project and like the project like and the project exercise. Any other questions? Okay. Let's see. So how would I go approach this? Okay. So if this is your first time designing something, I'm just gonna be honest. Okay, I'm not trying to put anyone down, by the way. So y'all are amazing people and y'all have amazing potential. Okay. I know I've said some very harsh things like before about like the industry and stuff but it is I do still think it's very cutthroat, but it doesn't mean that like you can't make a living off of your art. I believe everyone here can make a living off of their art. Okay. Keep doing what you love, and I promise it's going to look cool and find a way to show people. That's the most important thing. If you can show people your art and you have a place to post it and make it, you're good. But like what I want y'all to do is like for this if this is first time doing this, don't expect to make something like this. Okay, it's super hard. So how you take the first couple steps to start going towards this direction, right? So here's what I would do. Okay. So this is your first time like designing something, base it off of something that actually exists in real life. Okay. Most of the time, as long as if you're referencing something that exists in real life, and as long as it's not something incredibly unique. So, like for example, if you like redraw Disneyland and you say that it's your like idea, you can't do that, okay? Because like you're redrawing characters in Disneyland and all that stuff, right? But if I'm like, I want like a Japanese tea house, as long as it's not something incredibly unique, I can actually probably use 70 to 80% of the reference and just make slight modifications. So it just can't be anything like super unique, you know? Like for example, if you grab this building, right? This is a very popular building. Like, I mean, I guess it depends on how you use it too. But like if you like basically like just redraw the scene, like everybody knows like that's Kyoto, that you don't own that. But find like very generic, but also interesting buildings that you can reference, right? So like for me, like it's primarily going to be like this tea house over here, and I maybe want to combine it with some of these other parts over here, right? So let's go ahead and like take a look at some of these. I like this shape too. And I also recommend y'all don't like overwhelm yourself with too many references. Like I know there's a lot of interesting pictures, but I try to like primarily base my model off of like 2 to 3 pictures. And then the rest of the pictures I find are for like the detail. So maybe it's like I like this one, and I want like one that's like attached, you know? So let's see. Actually, kind of like this. By the way, sometimes you might get people who like do illustrations of like things in life, and people ask like, how do you like this is like a very popular shrine. How can this person like get away with like using this as their own like idea? Okay, well, this person never claimed that this was their idea. This is just their artwork in that stuff. This is like their interpretation of that scene in their style, So they're selling their style, you know. The theme is Little Red Riding Hood. So anything related to Little Red Riding Hood, and you're specifically focusing on like grandma's, like on a grandma's house. Um, but yeah, like this person's trying to sell their style, right? But I want to find another. Okay, I can't really find another one with like an attached part. So maybe I'll just use this one here as reference, you know? So I would highly recommend, ooh, actually, you know what? I found some ones I really like. Okay, so this one over here. Okay, so I'm gonna use, Okay, so I'm gonna maybe delete some of these references actually, but I'm gonna try to stick to these two mainly, and I actually really like this one here too because I like the double story. So what I'm thinking is actually no, I might keep it single story. Yeah, I might keep it single story. We'll see. But I would say like try to base it off of like one or two main references, and then from there add little things to it that make it different. So like for example, it needs to look. I want this to be like grandma's tea house. Okay. So like for grandma's tea house, like I want it to look like a tea house first. Like I shouldn't just draw like any random Asian building because like it's not a temple, right? It's not like a multi-story like I don't know like sauna bathhouse thing like in Spirited Away, right? Like I will need it to make sure it's a tea house. What's a tea house? It's small, it's quaint, it's peaceful, right? Like it's going to be a little more isolated, right? So what I want to do is just make sure that's a tea house first. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and make a new file. And if I'm kind of just designing out this tea house, I know I did like flats last week, but I kind of like this tea house idea. We can start off with designing out, making sure that it looks like a tea house first. So I'm gonna like heavily use this first design. And let's actually make it just a little smaller. I mean, kind of like that. And then I like how this, oops, like how it goes like that. And we have these parts that kind of come out. And you see, like I'm like kind of basing it off it like pretty heavily first. And I like this part that also sticks out. Then we have these two parts that kind of go down. And we have the door for the opening. Maybe for this, like since it's a tea house, maybe have like one of those like cloth like entryways that they can like push in. But yeah, I would base it off of something that kind of exists first. And actually, I want to add a little bit more because I really like this small part over here. So I'm going to go ahead and add that too. Kind of like this. And it was also for this one. I kind of like this rooftop. So let's borrow that rooftop. So you see, like I'm kind of just combining. I make sure that it looks like a tea house first. That's the most important thing, right? Like it needs to look like a tea house first. Afterwards, I can start adding things on there, little things on there that give it a little more personality. Like for example, let's just say I want everyone to design a shirt and a pants. What does a shirt and a pants need to do to make it a shirt and a pants? Right? Like afterwards, you put on all the little designs and all the little like things on there that make it unique. Or if you want to make like certain cuts, right? It needs to function that way. If I'm like, hey, design a car, what does a car need to be a car, right? Does a car need wheels? Can a car fly? Can a car, what does a car functionally do, right? Afterwards, you can add all the little curvatures, designs, and like extra features that maybe make it like a little bit unique to its own brand, right? So I would recommend start off with something familiar. Okay. If you're having trouble learning how to design, start off with something familiar first. And kind of like this. And then we can have like some windows here, right? And then maybe over here, since it's like grandma's tea shop, we can have like a sign. We can have a sign over here, right? And like this. Maybe it has like a middle thing. We can have like more fun with it. Maybe it has like a something that kind of looks like a tea leaf, something kind of like that. Or maybe like I want on the roof that for it to be like some overgrown like plants and stuff like that. But you see how like I started off with like just kind of focusing on like, hey, this is like a tea house, right? This is a tea house, and like it needs to look like a tea house first, and then I can decorate it. And it's kind of like I always say, like it's kind of like making a cake. It has to like function like you first like put all the things together, and that's like the base of the cake, right? And then afterwards you add like the frosting and all that stuff to like decorate it, right? You can make it themed if you want, things like that. But yeah, I would highly recommend y'all stick to like more familiar things first, because that's gonna teach you how to become a better designer. Because later on, like when you start knowing like what makes a house, what makes a motorcycle, what makes a computer, what makes a car, you can draw that in any sort of like think about like y'all like watch or seen Flintstones, right? Y'all seen like how they like do the car, like it's just like a two giant like stone slab, like cylinder slab, and they like basically like use their feet to like walk, right? That's a car. But how do we know it's a car? It looks nothing like any car I've ever seen in real life, right? But we know because they made sure that we understood it functionally. And then keep it simple again. Like if this is like your first like go through, like that's kind of what I would do. But make sure to do like a couple of them. So today what I kind of want to focus on, y'all, and then I'll do like one more, and then I've already did a couple last week. So if y'all watched the video from last week, there's like maybe like a good like 3 to 4 other ones in there. But I'm gonna take one of these two, and I'm gonna turn it into like three-quarter view, so that way y'all can see how we can actually use it for design uh, when we do our assignments. So let's see. So if I'm doing like another one over here, let's see. I kind of like this top one's shape. That's kind of cool. Okay. Maybe there's like little lanterns, right? There's like cloth, and then see if we can change the roof just a little bit. I think how this sticks out. Maybe you can move this into a roof. This. They keep your drawings very, very simple too. Like y'all can see I'm not really like trying to like put too much detail into them. I'm just trying to figure out an idea. And it's kind of how I want y'all to tackle these too. It's like kind of think of them like as you're trying to kind of like figuring out your idea first. Once you have a good idea, you can always move forward with it. More stuff on the right. Maybe we have a part that kind of like sticks out like that. And we can. Just has to be kind of like that. sign up here. Something kind of like that. So for Wednesday, I'm gonna number them. Anybody have any questions on I guess like how to do like the flats? Or anybody have any questions on design? Because I really want y'all to focus. So here's I just want to kind of go over like you can kind of use this to help with the grading too. Um, but I think it's better for your portfolio to think this way. I want y'all to think about I think it's better to have something that looks cool and kind of like not have as much like craft pushed into it than something that has a lot of skill but doesn't look cool at all. You know, like I'd rather see some. I think like for your portfolio, it's you definitely want something that has both. You know, like something that shows that you have good craft and technical ability along with like your along with just like making sure the design look cool. But I think like making sure your concept is good is like priority, right? Like just make sure like when you look at this, you're like, damn, that's a really cool prop. That's a really cool building. You know, this is a really cool story. It's a really cool idea. It feels so cinematic, right? So really think about those things. Anyways, we might take a early break since like I have to like head out a little early today. I also got to use the restroom. Anybody have any questions? Awesome. Okay. Let's come back at let's do 8:05, like 15 minutes. When we get back, we'll go ahead and I'm going to show you how to do three-quarter views. Yeah. All right, it's 8:05, so let's go ahead and continue. So here's what I would do next, y'all. So we're gonna move forward with one of these houses, okay? And based off my composition, I think I'm gonna go off with number one. I do think number two is very, very interesting, but I think like number two, I mean, I guess it could fit in there. It would just take up more of like it'd probably just feel a little bit more like blocky. So it'd probably like take up like this whole place, kind of like that, right? So kind of like the two options that we have. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's have y'all choose. Is there one that y'all want me to move forward with? So think about number one or number two. In a moment, I'll have everyone vote. For my online students, you can just type it in the chat. But I'll give you all like 30 seconds to like think about if you all want me to move forward with number one or number two. In like 15 seconds. Okay. Who wants me to do number one? One, two, three. Okay. Who wants me to do number two? Three. Um, if you didn't vote, did you want me to do number one, number two? All right. For the people who didn't vote, we're gonna try this. Okay. If you didn't vote, for the people who didn't vote, who wants me to do number one? Okay, we got one for number one. Oh, two for number one. Okay. For this, who wants me to do the second one for the people who didn't vote? Okay, I guess we're doing the first one then. So here's what I would do next. Okay. This isn't part of the process, I guess, or this isn't a part of like the required process. It might be actually good to add some like storytelling detail onto this. Like if you look at like Marie's stuff again, so let's go ahead and like look at Marie's stuff. If you look at Marie's stuff again, it's pretty clean. Like this is like a more rough one over here, and this is like a more clean one. Y'all see that, right? There's like a little bit of like a quality difference. So what I would recommend to do is let's make a duplicate. I like to make the duplicate just a little bit bigger, just so we can add more detail. And then from there, let's do this. Let's make it lighter so we can just barely see it. And we're just going to add and just refine some of the stuff on here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on these parts too. Okay, perfect. All right. So let's see. So let's go to the symmetry tool first, and we will work on this part over here. And we're just going to go ahead and get the base in, and we can also play around with some of the shapes too at the same time. I recommend like if you are trying to do something more stylized with shapes, really kind of like push some of the shapes a little. Maybe this is like one stick. And for this one, let's go. Let's just have this go all the way up first, and we'll add the leaves on top later. Like that. Erase these parts. Let's have this part come out over here. For this part, I kind of like how, actually no, let's keep this actually. This now. We have our sign. I'm kind of like basing this pretty heavily off like this top roof over here. But you can see like I'm like combining different elements. So like my original idea was like this one here, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, most of this stuff is the same. It's just like a little bit different shapes, but I like this part of the roof. So I'm using that part instead, right? So find different ways that make sure always that your big form reads functionally first. So make sure it looks like what it's supposed to be. Like this is like a tea house. Make it a tea house, right? Ooh, yeah, that could be kind of cool. It's not really a tea leaf, but if I use like a ginkgo leaf, that's a really pretty design. Maybe it could be it doesn't have to be like a T symbol on top either. Maybe like I have the T symbol on the sign and the top part represents like the part of the forest that it's in, you know? Or maybe that's like a theme to like grandma, right? Maybe like ginkgo leaves or something like that. There we go. There we go. Four. We have this part. I don't really like these windows. Let's make it more minimalist. It's a little bit too busy. Let's see. So this is kind of like a good base to kind of start with. You can see it's a little more refined now, right? It makes it easier for us to know what we're trying to do too. Then over here, let's go ahead and add some of those leaves back. Maybe we can draw them. Choose a mask. You add the leaves back, and then, oops, maybe we can have like a barrel or something out here.
Let's see, let me on your PCs.
Oh, sounds good. So you can see, what is it? By refining this down just like a little bit more, we can have a better idea of what our design is going to be. Anybody have any questions about, I guess, like this part of the process before we move on to the next part? Awesome. Okay. So, I want to kind of show y'all how I maybe visualize this into 3D, and then like we'll try to insert it into our composition. Okay. So to kind of like start off, now if you're having a little bit trouble with perspective, one way that you can kind of like visualize things in 3D is maybe by using like isometric first. Okay. Anybody here never heard of like what isometric is, or know what, anybody here not know what that is at all? Okay. So isometric, I guess like the easiest rule that I can kind of like say for it is like if we're trying to draw a box, like all of these lines over here are going to be like parallel. So like all these over here, they should be parallel, right? All of these over here, they should be parallel. It's usually like from a top-down view, but like you can do it from like a bottom, like a worm's eye if you want. Now for I guess like this assignment, I would probably do it from a top-down view because we could see a little bit more than like a bottom up, you know. So it's a little bit easier to work in isometric first if you're having trouble with perspective, and then later you can redraw it in perspective. Okay. So I'm going to kind of like turn this into an isometric building. And do this. Oops. Go. Let's make a new layer. And I'm just going to kind of use like a light gray first. And let's like not make it too skewed. Maybe something kind of like this. So this box, kind of like that. And then I feel like we can maybe have like this other part that's like sticking out. Not too much, right? But not too much. So maybe something kind of like this. And I'm trying to visualize these parts. It's just like big blocky shapes first. But you can see like if I just draw things in isometric view, I don't have to think about like my perspective or like vanishing points or anything like that. You know, it's not like very often that we see things in isometric view because we see the world in perspective. But it helps if you're trying to create something 3D without having to like focus too much on perspective, right? Anybody have any questions? Awesome. So yeah, it's a nice little trick, y'all. Because like I usually feel like when people go here, they try to like when they jump to the next step, they're like, oh, I want to do everything in like perspective right now. But then like they tend to jumble up their perspective like a lot, and your perspective doesn't have to be accurate at this part either. It just has to be like close enough for you to get the idea. But if you can't do perspective too well, this is a good place to start, like kind of like a stepping stone way up to perspective, right? So we can go ahead and grab this over here. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the roof. So you can see I kind of like work on the big pieces first. And it's really easy for me to kind of visualize how much space I need to give to each part because it's in like isometric view. Like, There we go. And then I feel like the roof is probably gonna kind of be like so maybe like kind of like this, like this. And some people are like, what the heck is he doing? Right? Well, I'm like drawing all these parts over here so that way I can connect these parts. So I'm trying to like build my form. Something kind of like that. Got these parts over here. You see, it's really easy to do because I don't have to think about my what is it? My perspective image. It's just all like isometric. Okay, now let's do this part. This can go up like that. I don't think it'll go up that high though. Let's just make it a little high. There we go. And this needs to go from here to here. Perfect. And you see, by using like different colors to draw, it can kind of help me organize like my sketch a little bit too. There we go. So now we have the roof for that. And then this part over here. And if there's too much color, you can image adjustments, desaturate, make it very, very light, make a new layer, and just keep working over it, you know? Like you can, it makes it easy for you to work on top of the next step this way. So like over here, right, I have like the roof. So I feel like for this one, right, so for this one, like the roof is probably going to be kind of like this, and kind of like this. And then if I really, really want, so let's do this is the middle. So let's do here. And then these are going to connect to here. That. So if we go back in, start getting some of these other parts again. I'm gonna move this a little bit. Another kind of thing that's kind of nice about isometric is because it's not in perspective, when you move stuff, like everything's gonna be kind of parallel, so it's a little bit easier to like adjust too. So I feel like we can maybe get something more accurate, kind of like that. Y'all can see we can start to visualize how like this actually is supposed to look. We can start to make like little adjustments to some parts. Now, I do think actually like going through this like process in 3D is like pretty important because when you do draw these in perspective later, it's going to be a little bit easier for us to know like which parts need to be in perspective and what things look like at in certain like angles. You can even go one step further, y'all, and even like do the other side, but it won't be necessary for the assignment. But for like my concept art people, it'll be nice for your portfolios to have that. This is kind of how I do a lot of my like designing too, y'all, is I'll take things kind of step by step. So something kind of like this, y'all. So you see, we went from like step one to step two to step three, right? It helps a lot to visualize things as just flats first, right? And then once you go to flats, you can go to 3D. Okay. Stick with isometric. And once you're done with that, the next step we're going to go into is perspective. And that's going to actually include our composition. So it is 8:45. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just go over the last couple announcements here. I'll stay for another like 5 to 10 minutes. If anybody has questions, I can answer questions. Um, for isometric, okay, we're going to go into perspective on like Wednesday. And what I'm going to show y'all how to do is we're going to take this composition over here. Let me actually save this. And then over here, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're actually going to insert this into the scene over here. Yeah, so I'll show y'all how we take this like isometric view and we start actually drawing it into our scene. And we're going to turn that into our final design or final line work. Uh, I'm also going to show you how to like really, really quickly do like values on like value testings on like Wednesday too. Otherwise, anybody have any like questions so far, or anybody have any like questions about like the process or about? And then this Wednesday we do also have a Project 3 thumbnail voting. So I do want y'all to have your compositions up for like the assignment. Any questions about today before I have to let y'all out a little early? But like any questions? All right. Well, in that case.